You are now listening to a member of the Disney Podcast family. Head over to Disney Podcast Family on Instagram to see all the latest posts for this show and links to other great Disney podcasts.
Melissa Pilgrim is a travel advisor with years of experience, a platinum earmarked agency with over 20 years in the travel industry. Because all families are different and have different needs, Melissa offers personalized levels of services that are unique for every family.
When it comes to Disney trips, Melissa is the perfect agent for you to get the information you need. Check out our website at www.milesfrommaineST.com/sponsors for more information and to get a free quote. We thank Melissa Pilgrim for sponsoring Miles from Main Street.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejados de las
This here's a wild ride in the whistle.
So today on Miles from Main Street, we have the wives with us. Say hello,
Always love
wives.
having the wives with us.
We are the wives.
Wives.
You're stuck with us.
So I've got my wife, Kristin, here, and Bryan has his lovely wife, Tammy, with him.
Yes, and right before we started recording, we found that I was having an issue, so we're sharing the microphone tonight.
Sharing the mic. Sharing is caring.
It is.
Yes, it is.
I don't
They're
like
just-
to share, but
They're just getting extra close.
It's a good thing we're married.
yes.
Yes.
Speaking of sharing, we would love it if everyone would go out and share the show with a friend or a loved one. And let them know how much you're enjoying the show and that they should come over and listen.
Yes, most definitely. So today on the show, we are going to be talking about the most recent trip that actually the four of us went on to Disney World. This was Bryan's main trip. Bryan spent I think a week. You spent a whole week at Disney World?
8 nights.
8 nights. Oh my
8
goodness.
crazy nights.
And Kristin and I just kind of tagged along. We made it a weekend trip. So this was kind of our way of crashing Bryan and Tammy's trip. If you've listened to the podcast before, Bryan and Tammy crashed one of our trips. So we were how do you say that? Not reliving the favor, but we were
Returning the favor.
returning the favor.
Yeah.
We're recording
guys
this
are
live.
good, I've been thinking about how some of the days went, and it was like, you guys never said boo. It was just, okay, that's what we're doing, and followed right along. And it was, I was trying to make sure everyone was happy the whole time, and there were points that I was worried about what you guys were doing and wanting to make sure you guys were happy. And it seemed like you guys were just kind of along for the ride, and whatever happened, and you didn't really care.
I mean, let's be honest. We were all slaves to Mia.
Well,
Ruled
yeah.
by the 10-year-old.
Right. So my mother-in-law was along, Tammy's mom, and our 2 daughters came along with us. So it was a big group that we were moving through that park, all 4 parks.
Yeah, and this was something. So when we went on our couples trip, this was something that I was kind of worried about like how the 2 couples would interact and how we would like go through the parks together. But we found pretty quickly that like we kind of had the same idea of like how to hit the parks and like the things that we wanted to do and how we wanted to accomplish them. And I feel like that kind of, I mean, it's easy to do because we're Disney people. And like the 4 of us know kind of like how to do the parks. And so I feel like that wasn't a huge issue. Now going into this other trip, which was Bryan's family plus us, I was not worried, but interested to see kind of like how we were going to do that. Because Kristin and I had talked about like, okay, if things get like a little too crazy or like a little too slow, we may just kind of like peace out. Like we're gonna go do our thing. And that never really happened. I feel like things were chugging along like just like the right amount of like pace throughout the parks. that we never really felt like we needed to like go off and do our own thing.
Which I find interesting because I felt like every time we said we're gonna go here, somebody said I have to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
But it was always somebody new. Like sometimes it was me.
I was worried about you guys for this trip too, because just judging off of like the last trip we took with the girls, I was like, ugh, Mia complains and whines about all the walking and stuff, and she did so good this time.
She did,
Like
yeah.
she barely complained at all about being tired and walking compared to past trips. So I think that helped move us a little quicker than normal.
I could tell something had changed too because she said, I don't really want to worry about meeting a character. I just want to go on more rides.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But not Guardians.
No.
No.
Or dinosaur ever again.
Oh goodness.
Which reminds me never to take Mia on a trip with Mykhailo and Kristin ever again. Because all they did was
Probably
try
don't.
to terrify my daughter the entire trip.
We did a pretty good job a couple times too. Yes. Scarred for life.
She will never believe anything you guys say ever again.
Never, ever again.
Will not. But so yeah, that was the kind of the group dynamic that we had going on. Was it was Brian's family and then the two of us. And again, we actually melded really well, like, kind of like into everything that was happening. But Bryan and Tammy got to stay at it's one of my bucket list resorts, but they got to stay at the Polynesian. And so there were a couple times where we just kind of pretended like it was our resort as well. Like we all went swimming at one point, and I feel like
Yeah.
this was definitely like forced swimming, like because it was actually kind of cold out that night.
Yeah.
But we were just like, at least us, like we were like, we're gonna make it happen. Like we're gonna go swimming because it's the Polynesian.
Yeah, and like who knows when we'll get the opportunity again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mia enjoyed a ton of time swimming. Actually, the night that we went swimming with you was the only night Bryan and I ended up swimming. We did have warmer days there where we could have, but we chose to just sit at a table and order drinks from the pool bar and chips and snacks instead.
And you guys had an amazing room, like
Oh
pool
yeah.
view.
Yeah,
It was a great
like
room.
the first room right off of the Great Ceremonial House
Mhm.
because they have like a green space out the back door of the main lobby, and our room was like right across that green space. So when we walked out of our room, the what is it? We didn't even go in that pool, the quiet pool.
Yeah, I don't even
I don't remember
what
the
was
name of
called,
it.
yeah.
But that was right there outside the door. And then off our patio, we were looking at the lava pool, which is the big main pool. And yeah, I don't think we could have asked for a better room.
No. I mean, we could have, I guess, had a view of the bay or whatever it's called.
Yeah, Seven Seas Lagoon.
Yeah, instead. But I liked what we had.
I did too. Yeah.
So I definitely wanted to ask. So Kristin and I, just to give you context, we stayed at just like a random motel that we found on like the Hopper app or something.
Mhm.
And honestly, though, that room was just fine. Like we would probably stay there again if we wanted to do kind of a quick trip. But yeah, it was just some random motel. But Bryan and Tammy were staying at the Polynesian, and I kind of wanted to know, Bryan, what it was like staying at the Polynesian and like being able to like call that home for a little while and going back every night and just like ending your night at the Polynesian, which is like pretty much what we did a couple times, Kristin and I. But then we made the like 5-10 minute drive out to our motel, so we had to kind of do that. But just being able to like call the Poly home for that trip, kind of like, what was that like?
I loved it. Being able, I mean, we're open to close park people, so park days didn't really matter, I don't think.
Right.
But on our off days, it was great. I mean,
Mhm.
we'd get up when we got up. We'd have we had Tonga toast, which was not a very popular thing in our room.
Mia liked it,
Mia did,
What?
but
Wow.
but the rest of
Oh.
us didn't really like it.
it was too
Oh.
chewy and not enough filling. And
I
Um,
demolished one of those whole things by myself once before. Would not regret or not recommend that.
yeah, we didn't really care for it.
Yeah.
Mia ordered it a second
Mhm.
time. But yeah, to be able to just walk up and to Captain Cook's and get whatever we wanted. And like the day we sat at the pool, I went and timed Trader Sam's and got the 2-hour wait so that we could get the kids in there before they shut it down to people 21 and over and under. And then watching fireworks like
From the
every night.
beach,
We
yeah.
love Happily Ever After, so to be able to just go out to the beach and watch fireworks from there and see the castle, it was perfect.
Mhm. And like one night, he and Paige went to Disney Springs, so I was at the room with my mom and Mia, and my mom went to bed early. Mia was playing on her phone, but like her and I looked around the room for hidden Mickeys.
Mhm.
She got hungry again for second dinner, so I went and got her dinner. And like while I was waiting for that, like I walked out to the entryway, and like I just kept walking through the lobby and out to the entryway whenever I could, because like other than being in front of the castle, I think it's my favorite spot on property of Disney is being in the entryway at the Poly.
Yeah. And I mean, I can't talk enough about being on the monorail. Like that was just awesome. At the end of the night at Epcot, jumping on the monorail and coming back and pulling right into our resort, like having that right there to get to the Magic Kingdom. I don't know how many times we used it. We used it to go to Hoop-Dee-Doo because we took it over to Magic Kingdom and then grabbed a boat to the Fort Wilderness. Like,
I will say, like, I liked the vibes of the Poly better, and I probably always will, but I did like the layout of our room a lot better at the Contemporary.
which, yeah, we talked about that, and I don't know if the layout is the same anymore.
I don't know, yeah.
They had a large desk in the Contemporary room, but that was before
Mhm.
they did the refurb
Mm.
to the Incredibles theme. So
Well, they had like a counter that you could put a lot more stuff, and they had mirrors out like in the main room, so that was a lot nicer for
Mhm.
getting ready in the morning and stuff.
yeah, I did like the storage closet. They had a storage closet with multiple shelves in the Polynesian room, so I was able to like put things away as we bought it, and keep it out of sight.
Mhm.
So Tammy came home with a cold, so you might notice her coughing a little bit here and there.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I was honestly green with envy that you guys
Yeah.
were able to stay there. It's again, it's a bucket list thing of mine. But yeah, and it's just so funny how like where we stayed, even like renting a car and everything. Like I had always thought that doing trips like that where you stay off property and you rent a car, like that it was always just going to be like such a pain. But honestly, I do it a couple more times just because of one, how cheap it is, and two, like if you know what you're doing, um, it's really not that hard to kind of like just like go pick up the car. Like honestly, I don't think we have, like I've heard horror stories of these parking lots at Disney, but like I don't think we've had like a morning or a night where we've had to really deal with all that much traffic.
Yeah, I think we got lucky because we would park early and
Mhm.
like meet up with you guys for early entry so that we were avoiding like the big crowds of parking. But the parking lots aren't bad. Like
Mhm.
you're either in walking distance or you have a tram to get you closer to your car. And with our annual pass, like we don't pay for parking. So
Mhm. That's clutch.
works out pretty
Yeah.
nice.
So yeah,
It does
it's
help.
yeah. I have always thought like, oh, just always stay on property, but like the past couple trips of staying off property and doing it the way that we're doing it, I think I'd be okay with doing it like that a couple more times. Anyways, we had some days together, like we talked about, and on these days together, one thing that happened to us, which is something Kristen and I have had this happen, but on Haunted Mansion, but we got evac'd from Pirates, and this was, I mean, the evac on Haunted Mansion was interesting because you basically just walked through the ride. We were pretty close to the front anyways already, so like it wasn't that hard to like walk through. But Pirates of the Caribbean, we got evac'd and we went backstage, and it was pretty cool. And the lights came on, and Bryan does a better job of explaining it. But it was very interesting, kind of going through all of that and seeing what they do for Pirates of the Caribbean, because I mean, there's water and there's boats, so I found it really interesting and just cool to be able to sit and look at everything with the lights on.
I think we were only a few of the people that were excited. Most
True.
of the people, I think, were just put out. But like I think our boat was pretty excited to be being evacuated.
Were the rest of you disappointed though? I was like disappointed that we were sitting where we were sitting, because I was like, no, I want to be stuck on here for longer, because we were like one of the first ones to be evacuated.
Yes,
and I was like, I want to look at stuff longer.
Yeah, yeah. It was interesting because we got through the cannon scene, the big boat scene with Barbosa, and then as we're coming through the rest, like into the town, things were starting to happen. Like we were noticing something was wrong. Somebody was talking. I think the sound dropped out during the auction scene for a little bit, and like we knew something was happening. And then we started coming into the burning scene, and that's when we met up with all the other boats that had already stopped. And we sat there for a while, and they kept telling us that there was a delay, and then someone came on and said, we're going to have to power down and restart the ride. And all this while, the music's still going, the lights are still off, like it's still happening. And then they finally came on and said the lights are going to be coming on, and that's when the sound turned off. The lights came on, and all the animatronics are still singing "Yo ho, yo ho." It was neat. They also warned us that once they turned things off, that the boats would float backwards. So we did float backwards. I've been posting video to Instagram, Facebook, and I've started putting it out here on YouTube as well, so that you guys can see some of the stuff that we experienced before they told us to turn off our phones. But yeah, I've got some video of us floating backwards to where you'll see the stairwell of where we actually got out. And so as we're sitting there with the lights on, we were able to take a lot of video. It looked really cool just seeing all these things that we're used to seeing, just in a different light, if you will. And then the cast members eventually come out and say, okay, this is going to be a process. Please be patient with us. Well, we're thinking, take your time. But we were the second boat to be emptied. And because we were sitting right by the stairwell. The interesting thing I found is that a cast member did have to throw on some waders and jump in the water. And he would push boats apart so that they could get the boat placed where they wanted it. And then he would hold the boat up against the side of the river, whatever, so that we could then climb out. And she said, I'm going to tell you what row gets out, and you need to listen to me because this is still a boat and it needs to stay balanced. So it was, I believe, the first row, then the last row. Yep. And they went that way. So then the second row, fourth row, and she would go towards the middle of the boat, which I hadn't even thought about something like that. But yeah, so we got out and went up some stairs, 5-6 stairs maybe. which you can see that when you're on the ride. It's right where the bridge is, right before you come into the burning scene, and the little part with the wife chasing the husband, where they're constantly going in a circle. We walked out behind that. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but we walked out behind that, so you could see there's just some rubber tires on the ground going in circles because everything was still running. And we got to go out the back of the building. I actually looked it up on Google Earth, and I was trying to remember, like, if we had come out like a door and then walked out to that road, or if we came out to the road right away.
I think we walked out the door from the main ride, and then there was still like another shed where they had like boats that weren't in use, and then we were out like to the road.
Okay.
Because when we got out of like the whole building, that's where we saw like those parade floats too, and I
Mhm.
think that's where the road kind of like came to.
Yeah, it was kind of cool back there because we saw the hen house that's in the parade, that I think Clarabelle Cow is usually on. They were hosing that down, and then the big princess parade float was against a wall across the parking lot, or whatever you want to call it, that we were walking in. I saw that parked back there, and another parade float parked back there, so that was kind of cool to see that. But then we walked down a road. It's just an access road. It's actually lines painted like a normal street.
I think
And
it's
we,
the road that you can see off the train. Like when
yeah,
you
I
go
think
over
you're
that
right.
bridge and there's like that like green stuff covering a fence. Like we definitely go over a road.
Yeah, I think you're right. But this one kind of splits off too, and the way they took us was right up to that. I don't know, like, it's right next to the entrance of where Pirates is. Like, if you're staring at the entrance to Pirates, is that alleyway to the left. So that's where we came back into the park. But it split off before that too. But that road goes right up against the back of Jungle Cruise as well, which we acknowledged it when we did that, but I didn't really put two and two together that we were right there by Jungle Cruise, like, oh wow, they kind of are next to each other. When you're in the park, that's not really what you're experiencing. So they gave us two fast passes, or lightning lanes, I should say, on the way out. So that was nice too.
They were great with my mom too. She only made it about halfway with all the walking, and it was, I'm trying to remember, Serena and Andrew, I think, were the two cast members.
Was it? I thought it was Annika.
I don't know what.
Anyway.
Anyway, they went and got a golf cart and got her wheelchair and stuff. So
Yeah, and she had gone ahead of us as we were walking out, especially when they were distributing the fast passes to us. So when I got back into the park, and Mia and I started looking for the bathroom, because of course she needed the bathroom, I saw the cast member then running back from like the Tortuga section with a key in her hand, like she was actually running, like trying to hurry up and get back to them. So we did send a cast compliment to her, and it was really great what they did.
Yeah, I mean I liked it a lot because you don't usually have that happen. But it's kind of crappy because then we didn't get to ride Pirates the rest of the day because it was just down the rest of the day. But we had ridden it the night before at our after hours party, which was really cool. And I'm sure we'll get into that later or on another episode. But yeah, just like a new way of looking at especially like we literally walked through like Brian said, like the sets. Like I was seeing like people had like scribbled stuff on like some of the wood planks, and I saw a couple Sharpies, and in my mind I was like, do I write something? But I mean that I feel like if a cast member saw me do that, they'd be like, lifetime ban. But yeah, there was, I mean, it's just kind of seeing all of that and just kind of like the bowels of Pirates was really cool because I always appreciate everything that's happening on the ride, and then seeing behind everything of what's actually happening is pretty cool.
Yeah, and as I'm thinking about it, we did walk past a backstage area where they load in and load out boats, which I thought was cool. You don't really think about that when you're on the ride, how the boats are getting in and out, or if they even do. Like, so I thought that was neat because then we did walk past. I think it was like at least 3 or 4 tall of boats stacked up, ready to go in case you needed more of them.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I liked it.
Yeah, definitely like the highlight of the trip,
Yeah.
I think.
And it's something that we were talking to somebody else, and then they're like, oh, they just need to fix some of this stuff. It's like that ride is so finicky. They just take it down and really fix it. And the rest of our trip, we had trouble with Slinky Dog. We had trouble with Phantasmic. It stopped halfway through the show for about 5 minutes.
With the Finding Nemo show.
Finding Nemo, our first day, it cut halfway through and they had to cancel the rest of the show. I've not had a trip ever where this many things had happened before. So it starts questioning, like, what are they doing? Like, is it just technical glitches? Are these rides starting to get that old? I mean, Slinky Dog's brand new, right?
Yeah.
Finding Nemo is a revamped show. It's not, so there's probably, I don't know if it was coming into the Crush scene, so we kind of think maybe something was up with Crush, but they had shows the rest of the day. I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't know. It makes you think because you got to think that Pirates isn't going anywhere.
Right.
Like Haunted Mansion's not going anywhere. But it makes you think of like these ride systems are so old. Like Haunted Mansion is from the like late 60s because like that's when they put it up. Like I think like 68, and then they just boarded it up and opened it in 1971. So it's like that ride system itself, and I don't know the history of like what's been updated. Like it's possible that like a lot of that ride system's been updated. I would hope so. But like the bones of those ride systems are super old. But like, yeah, in my mind, like I could never think of either Pirates or Haunted Mansion going anywhere anytime soon. So yeah, it makes you think kind of like what are the options of like how can they make it work better if like the bones are so old? Like what like other than just scrapping it and like putting in a completely new ride system, which if they did that, then I'm guessing they would I mean they'd be scrapping it and like putting something else in, kind of like the same way they're doing with Splash Mountain, although that wasn't because the ride system sucked. That was just because they wanted to not so much get rid of Song of the South, but there was all that stuff going on. But yeah, it makes you think like what are the options of like what could you do with these rides to make them work better?
I don't know, like I think they have replaced the track at Space Mountain once. It's just, there I was talking to somebody else, and Mykhailo, you and I have gone back and forth on this whole fifth gate thing. And I don't know that the financials are there for a fifth gate. So I have trouble believing that that would come along anytime soon. But then when you start talking about maintenance on these rides and trying to keep them up, and the financials aren't there for that, like, I don't know. Disney Plus is holding them down so much right now that it's hard for me to see them being able to make the big investment that they've said they're going to make.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know any of that. I don't look into the financials.
I just saw something that they've had this like 40 or 50 long plan at Disneyland that they're going to be doing this like 1.9 probably $1 billion like expansion, adding in like different theming. So I don't know. I think the parks are making money, but like
Well, yeah.
talking about the rides too, like Rise of the Resistance when that was brand new, like that ride was down all the time because there's so many different points where like the technology can fail. And like I couldn't imagine turning it off, turning it back on again, like takes a long time. So
Right. Right.
I don't know. I don't think that it's a problem that they go down because like they come back up. Like
And
they
it-
fix it.
And it happens. Well, and to your point, Brian, you have been a Disney fan for how long? And this is the first time you've gone where it's like really been bad.
That's
So, those are pretty good odds.
But also, like, they've said they're going to put $60 billion into their parks. And, I would like to see them do that. But I know they've got two different companies coming after the board right now. The stock price is not as good as they want it to be. They've got a lot of financial issues going on, and to be able to dump money into the parks, which the parks is what makes them the money right now, right? Like, movies are not doing good. Disney Plus has been a drag. They need to keep something making money, but can they put the money into it to keep it making money right now? I don't know. That's for Bob Iger to figure out, not me.
And I've had this thought in my head before, and I don't know financials at all. Like I've literally never looked into that. And anytime they do those, like financial calls or whatever, like a town hall or whatever they call it, I never watch those. But I had this thought the other day when I was watching. I think it was watching the Imagineering story, and they were talking about like the HVAC system that they have at Magic Kingdom, and talking about like utilidors. Like, would we ever see Disney make another park with utilidors? Because I'm pretty sure they made Hollywood Studios so that like everything is around it. Like all of the entrances are from around the park, so then that's how people get in. Like they didn't build utilidors with that park. They kind of built utilidors with Epcot. I think there's utilidors in the front, but then not the back, which makes sense because again, in the back you can get around everything. But I was just thinking, like, and it's funny how Walt just like there's no real delicate way to put this. Walt like had the balls to like throw the money around, and he just did it. He would just like throw all this money around, throw all this money at what he wanted to do because he had these grand dreams. And there was Roy just figuring it out. Like Roy was out there just like trying to figure it out for him. And then there was who was the next big one after Walt? Not Eisner, but Michael Eisner.
Yeah.
Then there was Michael Eisner, who like also kind of did that, where like he was like, we're Disney, like we go big on all this stuff. So he was also just like throwing money at projects. One of the things that he did was Euro Disneyland, which like they have said before, like, oh, you can spend too much money on a park, because they spent so much money on Euro Disneyland. And so I think to myself sometimes, like, when will there be somebody in the Disney company that will have like the strength to like throw money at projects like this the way that these people did in the past? Because I feel like and this is not like so much a knock on Disney, but like I feel like there are times where they put financial boxes around stuff, and they're like, this is what we're doing with this much money. And that, I mean, I'm not 100% sure that that's what happens, but it's like that puts restrictions on the Imagineering that's happening. Whereas I feel like before, Walt was like, I want to do this. How much money is it going to take? And it was more like the Imagineering was happening, the ideas were happening, and then the financials were taken care of. I feel like they are very, and it makes sense because you got to be careful with a company as big as Disney, but at the same time, Disney is the company that they are because of those people who just had it in them to just throw what they needed to throw at projects to make them good.
Walt definitely was the dreamer, and Roy just wanted to make sure he got what he wanted, right? And when it came to Disneyland, Walt was selling things of his own to afford it, right? Like he was helping with making that money.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forwarding to what you said about Eisner, remember from the Imagineering story as well that when Eisner came in, they had a couple of hits on movies. That's what gave him the cash to throw at the parks. It wasn't that he was making these grand ideas and saying, forget it, we're just going to do it. And Frank Wells had to go find the money. He had the money. He had the money to be able to just do it. So nowadays, though, I think that's where Iger was headed. Like Disney Plus is what's going to give us the money, but it's not happening the way they wanted it to. The stock market kind of turned on him right away and said, wait a minute, you need to start making money. And so now they're kind of all of a sudden reeling and trying to figure out how to fix that gap that they thought they were going to be able to have. We've really gone off the rails here as to what we would want.
Welcome to Miles from Main Street. This is how we function.
Yeah. Let's wrap up the evac, and I think we can save some of the other trip for next time.
Sure.
So getting back to the evac, it was an awesome experience. I hope we get to do something like it again. As much as I've talked about some of the problems that we had on this last trip, it did get a little frustrating, but also I don't mind getting evac from a ride just to be able to see some of backstage.
Especially because, by the time you get to the burning scene, you're about 3/4 of the way through the ride, so we got most of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I really enjoy I just really enjoyed like being back there. And it's funny how you, Brian, like actually looked on the map to like figure out where we were. Because I was just like, oh my God, like look at all this stuff. And and the cast members were really great with everything that they did. And it was funny. We were walking by one, and they just kept saying like, oh my God, we're so sorry. Like, because I'm sure when people have evacs, people will sit in those boats for a while to get evac. I'm sure they're not happy with any of it. But they kept apologizing, and we walked by one, and we were like, no, it was totally great. We were really, really happy about it. And but she did say like, oh, you're like the third person to say that. So I'm sure people get it, and people also get excited about evacs instead of just us.
I did find it interesting that as we were walking along that road, one of them's like, stay inside the white line. And I'm like, this is backstage. Like, is there a random car that's going to come by and hit me? Like, why are we so worried?
I do wonder if we hadn't been sitting where we were sitting, if our view on this would be the same. Like I think it would be, but maybe not, because like had we been one of the last boats to be evacuated, I feel like my mom and Mia, our 10-year-old, would have been like, I would have been ready to jump in the water by then, probably. Like, get away. They would have been complaining.
And when the lights came on, like Mia was saying, like, I need to use a bathroom. And I immediately thought about that video of that lady getting her kids out of the ride because they had been stuck for so long and they needed to go to the bathroom.
Why?
And that is Moo.
Welcome to the podcast, Moo, our Great Dane.
She has thoughts.
Oh,
She has thoughts.
It's okay.
She agrees with me. She would not want to be stuck on that boat for that long.
Yes,
she was
definitely.
snoring this whole time. Yeah. Mia is just a funny 10-year-old because like when the lights came on, she immediately was like, I can't wait. I have to go to the bathroom. I have to go right now. And then when we were walking on the road backstage and your mom like couldn't walk any further, Mia was like, oh, I'll stay with her. Like I'll stay and wait. I don't have to go to the bathroom.
Typical 10-year-old.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
that girl.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It could have been a much longer process, a much more stressful process had we had. And I wonder, somebody asked me how long it took, and it's like, I wonder how long it actually takes to get everybody out of there.
I don't know, because by the time she got back with the golf cart to get us, a lot of people had gone past during that process, and there were still people coming out after that. So
yeah, it was an interesting process. So we want to know if you've been evacuated. Let us know in the comments below. Have you been able to get backstage without a tour? Getting to see anything that you're not supposed to see on a ride? We'd love to hear about it. Let us know in the comments. Come on with the Facebook and Instagram and let us know there.
But like we always say,
Some live close
and others don't.
So let's talk about it.
We'll see you next time on Miles from Main Street.